A look that led to an evening, a mistake he'll regret for the rest of his life. Sexy Time Theater does it with Fatal Attraction. Hey guys, welcome to episode 1 of Sexy Time Theater. I'm Ben.
I'm Shannon.
And I'm Reese.
And each week we're going to take a look back at classic erotic thrillers of the 80s, 90s, and maybe even some from today.
Holding out for that 50 Shades.
Yeah, we're already planning a field trip for 50 Shades of Grey next month. Maybe they'll bring the erotic thriller back to the mainstream. This podcast was my idea. It kind of gelled from I wanted to find a niche, like something that isn't being done, something like a kind of movie review podcast that hasn't been done yet. And I thought about what interested me as a kid, and it was second grade. My parents would not want me upstairs. They'd just be like, Ben, just go to bed, just go to bed, just go to bed. And I said, there's no TV in my room, and that's what puts me to sleep. So they said, go downstairs in the den. And they allowed me to go downstairs in the den where for a while, we had every premium package, and I was exposed to a lot. I would stay up all night. There were days where I would go into school with just bloodshot eyes, and I had seen so much. And that was my real education. You know, I learned a lot. It was, usually movies, it was like film noir kind of movies where there was lots of sex and, nudity and, at the time, I don't think HBO, like Showtime, they probably had like softcore stuff. But
yeah, I mean, Cinemax was pretty,
yeah. But HBO was strictly, they would just, we'll put on we'll put on like a Sharon Stone movie or whatever.
Yeah, there was no passcodes. Like now to watch Sexy Time Theater, you have
it's completely gone.
I mean, that's
honestly,
I think that's part of why the erotic thrillers lost their appeal. Was there's porn. There's internet porn everywhere.
Yeah, when I could pull my cell phone out of my pocket and watch the most hardcore extreme porn across the world, it's such easy access. Like the death of the erotic thriller is going to happen.
Sneak glances.
Because a second grader now has access to Mr. Hands, and once you see Mr. Hands, watching Michael Douglas and Sharon Stone simulate sex, it's not gonna.
Close.
Seriously, but the kids don't know the struggle. Life's just like Ben, second and third grade. I was learning the birds and the bees from Jeff Fahey softcore porn movies. Seriously.
Oh, none of that.
Shannon,
I was not. No. I was not exposed to any of that.
No self discovery.
I was a big Power Rangers fan. Just for the record. Mom.
But each week we're gonna go take a look at these movies and see what was the appeal, because there was a solid 10-year period starting with the movie we're gonna talk about tonight through probably the late 90s where these movies were huge.
Yeah.
Oh man, massive.
Really big.
Now they're just gone.
And they were the movies that your mom was like, no, you can't get away. Well, apparently not Ben's mom. But my mom was like, no, you don't even touch it.
Get out of the bedroom, Ben.
You're not allowed in that part of Blockbuster. Get out of there.
They're gone. And I kind of feel like I want to look back at some of them and be like, were they, because at the time they were revelatory. They really were huge for me. So now I want to see, is it still sexy?
Well, and you know what? Movies now have a lot of sex in them, but it's different. It's not the same at all.
Yeah, no.
That's true.
The steaminess is gone. The sexy timeness of it is
it's
really
more
away.
We're going to have straight sex and you're going to watch it.
Yeah.
It's more pornographic, honestly, now.
But the way it's going to work is it's going to be a film review podcast. There's definitely, we're going to look at it as a movie, as well. And it's not going to be just we're not just doing kitschy kind of bad stuff. If it's a good movie, if it's a bad movie, we'll just look at it on its own merits. We're not trying to just pick apart it, just for the sake of making fun of it. But at the end of the day, the real question was it a sexy time? And we'll get there. Okay, so the movie we're talking about tonight it's essentially the Jaws of erotic thrillers. I was looking at the trivia for it, and I didn't remember. I remember it being a kind of a cultural touchstone. I don't remember it being as huge as apparently it was. On a budget of $14 million, it made $156 million.
Ooh, yeah.
It was number one at the box office for 8 straight weeks. Academy Award nominations: Best Picture, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, Best Director, Screenplay, Editing. I mean, I remember it being big, but I guess, we were babies.
Yeah, I don't remember this being big. I was not.
But it was always, like the elevator scene and stuff like that. There were always references to it, like in, parody kind of stuff.
This was my first time seeing it.
Really?
Yeah, I'd never seen it.
You were aware of it, though, right?
I was aware that a rabbit died. That was my... they were like, yo, this bitch boils a rabbit. And I was like, what?
That was my big thing. When I got the call for what the film was going to be, I literally was thinking to myself, I'm like, this is the perfect movie to start off this podcast. I mean, to me, when someone says erotic thriller, the first thing I think of is boiled rabbits. It's really what comes up in my mind.
Some nice stew is all I have in my mind.
Legitimately.
So everybody, we all watched it separately. We took some notes, and we're kind of just gonna sit and compare notes about it, and we'll get to whether it was sexy or not. But again, we're just gonna kind of pick it apart as a movie first. So my first note was the opening credits. Fred Gwynn from the Munsters, Herman Munster, and the judge from
Addams Family.
No, the judge from.
Oh no. My Cousin Vinny.
My Cousin Vinny, yeah.
Of course. One thing.
So he was in the credits, and I immediately marked out. I was so excited. And then he was in it.
Credits?
What?
His
name was in the credits, but he's only in the movie. He's in the movie for maybe 3 minutes.
I was gonna say, who is he in the movie?
He's one of the clients, literally,
for a second. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
So then we open up, and Michael Douglas is a workaholic family man in his underwear. His kid, his child is watching Nickelodeon, and he's kind of just sitting there in his underwear, and he's got headphones on, and he's ignoring his family. They kind of introduce the family, and he's kind of removed from them a little bit.
I just want to say, his wife is exceptionally hot. I was looking.
Ann Archer is a pretty woman.
Yeah, she was walking around, and I was like, why is he, what is going on? And why would he go outside of it?
Seriously, and if people out there haven't picked up, I think it's safe to say everyone has realized at this point we are speaking of the 1987 classic Fatal Attraction. Did
I not mention this?
Yeah, I think we skipped that part. But
Spoilers.
Spoiler alert.
But yeah, no, his wife is way hotter. I was like, there's no... I don't know. It made me sad. They have a dog. They're watching TV, and they're going out for a fancy night.
Yeah, I mean, Ben brought up the Nickelodeon. I was, very surprised and taken aback to see you can't do that on television. I was happy to see that. That was really cool.
They kind of shows you forget.
I kind of give them credit for not making they're not making excuses for Michael Douglas at all. Really,
no. His life is great. He's a dick.
Yeah, they kind of show the kid crawling in bed with the wife and kind of interrupted him when he's
cock block.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why they didn't just put her in the den with some HBO and Showtime, but they could have. But
taking a little aside, they have a son. They don't have a daughter.
No, it's totally a daughter
it's
that
totally
looks like
a boy kid. And listen, when they said Ellen, I was like, is it Ellen DeGeneres? why do they have a young boy child?
Let's get real. If they put one of maybe not you, but one of your sisters with the boy cuts from the early 90s, late 80s. In a movie,
I feel like Erin, my younger sister, had a short haircut, and I don't know. We dressed her up she still looked like a girl.
Yeah, there was actually
pantsuits.
There was a lot of I don't know what her real name is, but on IMDb on the message board, there was a lot of "Leave Ellen alone." Stop. She's obviously a girl. Why? Yeah. It's very upsetting to her. She's in her 30s, and it's still very upsetting that people think she's a boy.
Well, listen, they did not help their cause. No. They did not put her in pink. They didn't throw a dress on her at any point. She is constantly in oversized jackets and pantsuits.
So Michael Douglas and his wife, they go to a party at a publishing house that he represents because he's a lawyer. And we're introduced to his fat friend in this movie. And Michael Douglas he's got a thing.
His big-boned friend.
He's got a thing about fat friends. Or misshapen friends. He's Danny DeVito's in a lot of his movies.
Yeah.
He's got Wayne Knight and Basic Instinct. So this guy. Who was it?
Stuart Pankin.
Stuart Pankin, yeah. Also of Dinosaurs fame.
I know that was my big surprise. Earl Sinclair. I mean, that's a good find on IMDb. I was very happy to see that.
What I was going to say is this probably is to make him look better because he's not an exceptionally handsome man.
Oh, yeah, so that was an interesting thing that came to light, is that Shannon doesn't find Michael Douglas attractive.
Not that I don't find him attractive. I just don't, like, when I think universal sex symbol, I'm not like Michael Douglas.
But, I mean, this movie put him on the map as a sex symbol. I mean, Romancing the Stone helped.
We'll
but,
get into it.
I mean, he was making these kind of movies for the next 8-9 years because of this.
I feel like they had to put it, like, when you have to put a fat friend next to him because it just makes sense.
I just feel like if you're a privileged, like, Caucasian male in the late 80s making six figures, you most likely have a tubby friend as your sidekick. That just seems natural.
Your hanger-on.
Yeah.
So they go to the publishing house party, and we are introduced to Glenn Close's character, Alex Forrest. And the thing about her that I think I picked up right away, and I'd seen the movie, so I had some of it spoiled for me, but she looks like someone that would ruin your life.
She looks like a crazy bitch in that bar.
It reminded me of, like, Stephen King always bitches about the original version of The Shining with the Kubrick did. Nicholson, because he said when you start with Jack Nicholson, you know he's going to go crazy.
Instantaneously.
Yeah, like, she wasn't necessarily the most gorgeous girl in that bar, but the tubby friend was like, you see that girl? Yeah, look at her.
I'll skip ahead a little bit. What? Later on, you see Tubby's wife, and he was...
She's an odd duck.
He outkicked his coverage. She was a handsome woman.
He totally did, but...
I mean, Michael Douglas, it's one thing Michael Douglas is gallivanting around, cheating on his wife, but Tubby needs to stay at home. You did as good as you're gonna do.
Oh, his lot.
But... So he meets Glenn Close, and they... Oh,
and smoking is still sexy. Like, everybody's like... If you're hot, you're smoking.
Oh yeah, that was true through the night. I would say it's still true, but
and the cigarettes.
Yeah, I mean, and she's Glenn Close. You know, I apparently, like, there were people that said she was the last person that would have been, you know, like, an option for this kind of role. But I think she's a handsome woman. I mean, she's an amazing actress. She pulls it off. She totally pulls it off.
But she looks like she has no eyebrows. Like, I don't know.
She looks. Let's be honest here. She looks like Skeletor. Like, let's just call it what it is.
I think that having eyebrows helps that.
So Frank Langella could have also been Alex Forrest.
It was. I was upset. When I saw her, I was like, well, if I look across the other side of the room and see my really hot wife, I'm not going to look at her.
Yeah, that really kind of took me away. I thought that was one of the least realistic things about it. I was talking about Michael Douglas being an international sex symbol. There is nothing about Glenn Close when I think of sex icon that comes to mind.
Yeah, she still looked like Cruella de Vil. like that role was handed. But I'm sorry. That's another thing, though. Like, you know, they have her where she's, like, you know, kind of sitting there, and he walks up to her, and he starts a conversation with her, and while they're talking, like, he's like, oh, that's my wife, and she's like, better get back to it. Like, he is.
I mean,
why was he flirting with her in front of his wife?
But I will say, you know, as manly as she may be, and as frazzled as her crimped '80s hair was in that scene, she does have a sexiness about her. Though.
Yeah,
like, she does seem like she needs good time in the sack.
You bring up an interesting. You asked why he did something. I would argue that you could spend the whole movie asking why he does a lot of things. One of the things that, like, he's kind of impenetrable. Like they didn't want to, it's obvious that he didn't want to, or they didn't want to give him any outs or try to explain away his behavior and try to, you know, excuse it. But they also never really, like, you know, there's stuff that he does that just we'll get into.
Makes no sense.
But just in general, before we get back into just kind of pulling the threads apart, I had a lot of problems with it this time when I watched it that I didn't really have probably like 15 years ago when I saw it. And it's a weird movie because it's like an adult psychological relationship movie for most of it, but then there's these really goofy, like, ridiculous sex scenes at the beginning to kind of keep people interested, I guess. And then the last 30 minutes, it turns into a completely different movie.
Oh, we'll get there.
It really does. Yeah, like not to get ahead of ourselves, but the turn, you know, for Alex Forrest, for Glenn Close's character, it literally is like the flip of a coin. Like, like, you know, like, it's one thing, she's sexy, and, you know, she starts to get a little bit clingy, and then the next thing you know, like, all hell's breaking loose. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but yeah, it did, some pacing issues, I find, maybe, a little bit, but, you know.
Well, and that's, like, and then, you know, next, you see, like, just her sitting with him in the office, like, he goes to work, and she's brought in for, like, a case or whatever.
That was a funny scene, too, because it's kind of like, it's Michael Douglas and his buddies at this publishing house, or the lawyers or whatever, and then there's a secretary, and they're making jokes about the one guy, like the old guy has the neck brace, and, oh, you got that from screwing? And they're kind of giving sideways look at the secretary, like, you're going to be cool about this, right? And it was just like that old school boys club kind of thing. And I think that's kind of, like, they were kind of...
That's why sexual harassment cases are now a big thing.
One of the things that seemed like they were kind of going for was that very privileged kind of, like, yuppie boys club thing. Like, that he was kind of like, you know, oh, you know, like, I can get away with having this affair. But anyway, so Alex Forrest shows up. She works, she's an editor, a book editor.
Smoking in the office.
The only professional woman, successful professional woman in the movie, and of course she's a lunatic.
Yeah.
Wow. Gotta get them in, them digs.
Yeah, it's
right.
Good to point that out, though. Yeah.
They get to talking, and they end up going out to eat, and we should mention that Ann Archer
hold on. You're skipping that they got caught in the rain outside.
Oh, no, well, that's when... Oh, yeah, they do.
Yeah, they have like leave the office.
So they have like a 80s meet cute where his umbrella won't work, and she's like, hey, I got an umbrella, and... So, they take a cab over, and they go to have dinner, and Ann Archer and the girl, the daughter that they have, the female girl they have is...
Beautiful Ellen.
Yes.
Ellen Gallagher.
Not Alan.
That son of theirs.
They're away looking, they want to move to the country. It would be a bitch of a commute, I'd imagine, for Michael Douglas. But move to the country, so she's looking at houses out where her parents live. So she's out of town for the weekend, so... there's very little, like, it's just immediately, like, he's like, okay, well, we're gonna fuck.
Yeah.
There's no...
Well, no, when they're at that little, like, we're going to talk for hours in a crowded bar, like, my wife isn't still here. She had already left at that point. She, like, when they're sitting there, she says something to him like, oh, you know, are you discreet? I'm discreet. Which bitch totally isn't.
Are you discreet?
And she spends the entire movie proving that she is not anything but. And she also calls him a naughty boy, which I think kind of kicked it off.
Yeah.
I have notation of naughty boy.
I feel like there was this undercurrent the whole time, like he was expecting it. I don't know,
he totally wanted it from door, which is weird.
Totally from Jump Street. Well, like when Tubby friend Stuart Penkin, makes the comment of seeing her in the bar, the eyes that Douglas makes at her, and she returns to him. Any normal human being watching this film is like, oh, so they're going to be fucking. Like,
that's like 5 minutes from now,
right?
That's going to happen.
And it will be on a sink.
Oh,
so that was...
Whose house were they in? Were they in her house?
They were in her apartment.
Her apartment, okay.
It's weird. There was a continuity thing, because later on, then they go back to her apartment. He's like, nice apartment, but they were already in her apartment.
Their apartment's like,
the completely white apartment in the meatpacking district.
With the amazing doorbells.
Yes.
I thought those doorbells were so cool. I was like, I want to live there for the doorbell. Like...
So we get the first sex scene, which is again on the sink. They're very, it's like that rushed kind of passionate. They're tearing, they're suckling.
You have something here because there's something about this first sex scene that pulled me away. That pulled me away.
If I was up on a sink, I would not turn the water on and splash the person with it.
Like when I was watching it, she reaches back and turns the water on, and like the movement that she did this is something I would never imagine that anyone would ever do. Actually having sex, she wets her hand and like drizzles like her shirt as she removes or exposes her left breast, which I gotta say, Glenn Close, boobs are looking kind of hurt, man. I mean, like, she said she was 36, I think, at some point in the movie. Those boobs were looking like at least 46. Let's be honest
Little deflated. But we love you.
I had some thoughts about the water, actually. The guy that directed this, Adrian Lin, he also directed Flashdance.
Oh, see.
He's got like a water
He's got a water thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, what's funny is, like, she just, like, okay, you want to drip it on your chest, on your white shirt. Like, okay, like, you're exposing yourself. Not that you won't be in 3 seconds anyway, but then she starts, like, rubbing it on his face. Like, oh, like, and also, you straight see Michael Douglas lick Glenn Close's nipple.
Oh, yeah.
That is an up-close shot.
They are actors. They're very
It's
professional.
not fake. Well, yeah, but, like, you know, nowadays, I feel like everybody's in pasties, and it's body doubles, and, like, people, like, I feel like it's kind of like that, but you straight saw this.
In mainstream cinema Hollywood, when's the last time you've seen, like, mainstream A-list
like, just
nipple?
straight on, like, bleh.
I remember in The Getaway, the remake of The Getaway, the Steve McQueen movie, they did, when they remade it
with Basinger, right?
Yeah, Alec Baldwin.
Yeah,
So they were really married. And there's something going on, like, when you have a real married couple, it gets really weird, because I guess they're more comfortable, so it's a little bit more realistic, but it's also like that, it's just like, I mean, I remember him, like, just going to town on her nipples in that movie, and it's just...
In what movie?
The Getaway.
The Getaway.
It's all, like the couples in movies, it's almost as scary and awkward like a brown bunny. Like, that's just not sexy at all. It's just, like, it's kind of stomach churning and almost a little rapey even.
It was
like,
just... One other
thing. Then they move off of the sink, and he's carrying her, and
with his pants around his
pants.
ankles.
So he's kind of doing that
down steps a little bit.
Hardwood floors. The whole thing was dangerous.
Yeah, they're soaked. She set them up to die together while having sex the first time.
That was one thing I did like. I liked, like, he was, like, doing a little dance to try and get his pants off around ankles, and, like, she let out a laugh. That was kind of natural. That's the type of thing that you see, like, normal couples, like, do having sex. They didn't really Hollywoodize it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, it was as awkward and, like, you know, strange as an actual sexual encounter would be.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable. Like, not that it was uncomfortable, but I was like, I feel like I'm really looking into their bedroom. Like, I'm very weirded out.
So then they go to a salsa club, which is a huge 80s movie thing. White people in salsa clubs.
Yes.
I was like, there's a lot of ass shots, too. It's just like, they recorded from the floor of that. Like, floor up shots.
And they essentially, that salsa club scene is essentially there so that then they can have another sex scene and kind of just have bookends. So it's not
jobbing in an elevator.
Okay, so I mean, what can you say about that elevator scene?
I mean,
again, going to town on her tits. Going to town.
That I gotta say, in a sexy scale of 1 to 10, that hit probably about 11 for me. I thought that felt good to me. Now, you were saying earlier, like, you know, a little behind the scenes action. There was some things that pulled you away, so I want to hear what you had to say about it, Ben. But for me, like, you know, and maybe it isn't just because of its like the iconicness of the scene and years of, like, you know, movies spoofing it and stuff like that. For me, like, I felt the sexiness. It got a little steamy for me. I was shaking my collar.
It wasn't bad, but Michael Douglas is guilty. I can't think of an actor who cannot just maybe Vincent Gallo because but there's not an actor that I've ever seen that can successfully just get a blowjob on camera. It's always just like either like it's just it's just like that goofy face, and of course they kind of played it up as a joke anyway, because then like they stop the elevator and there's a guy walking by and whatever. But yeah, I mean it's not that the scene is very memorable and everybody. That's like one of the big things, like one of the 3 or 4 things people remember about Fatal Attraction for sure. But it's just kind of weird. It just doesn't really flow with the rest of the movie.
Can I say though that even though I do not find Michael Douglas extremely attractive, the way that he was, like, just kind of tearing into her.
He's got moves. Yeah.
I feel as though he's probably a very generous lover. Like, I would venture to guess that he's very generous.
So then he takes off. He fucks her and he leaves, and he left a note, which he didn't just kind of put nice. He just left it on the bed, right?
Underneath of her. Apparently, she had no clue where it was.
And he goes home and he gets on the phone and it turns out that this it's weird. He doesn't seem to feel bad about it, but it's obviously like he's not a professional. Like it's not his deal as cheating.
Yeah.
He's not cheated before because he's a fucking awful liar. He gets on the phone and his wife's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" She's like, "Oh, I was."
I haven't even heard an excuse about it.
How's the family? And,
I was out. Don't worry about it. Not in an elevator.
And then he gets on the phone with Alex and this is the first time we find out that she has his phone number, unsolicited, like he didn't give it to her. And she's like, "Where'd you go?" And she's already there's like,
I wanted to wake up next to you.
Because we're watching a movie called Fatal Attraction, red flags are already up. But, even then, he's got to already be like, oh boy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But,
you're talking about being a bad liar, and with the oh boyness of it. I mean, at one point, she was like, "Well, I thought you were going to be here." His excuse is, "Well, I had to walk the dog." It's like, you just are telling a woman that you just fucked and left her house that you can't hang out with her because you have a 10-minute chore you needed to do? Like, I'm sorry. This seemed weird to me.
I gotta walk the dog, Reese.
I mean, and then, it's just like, he just spent like 15 hours with this woman.
Yeah.
She's clearly an erotomaniac. He just looked like a shell of himself when she got done with him. Like, he's kind of like rolls over into his side. He's like shivering, and she's like kissing his neck. And he's like, I can't. I'm done.
Like, gotta
go. Then he finally breaks down. And he goes and he hangs out with her. And this was like, for me, was the biggest violation. And this says more about me than anything else. But he brought the dog with him.
Yes.
He brought the family dog with him.
I thought that.
They're wrestling around with the dog. They're playing football with the dog.
What a dick.
I don't know why that, but like more than any of the unprotected sex.
Yeah, it's like bringing a kid though.
Yeah.
It's like you're bringing. I mean, maybe
it's like bringing like your 2-year-old.
Yeah, maybe as like a dog mom, I'm like kind of jaded, but I would never.
But, I mean, at this point, you're like, you talk about the people, like if you're sitting in a restaurant and you see them and you're like, oh, those people look like they're about to have an extramarital affair.
Yeah.
If you see them rolling around with the fucking dog in Central Park, you're like, oh, that's a couple.
Yeah.
Like, he was leading her on at that point.
And you know what? Like, she's like, I want to meet the dog. And instead of being like, bitch, no. Yeah. He's like, sure, let's go.
There's actually a joke there, because she goes, I love animals, and I'm a great cook.
Oh,
foreshadowing.
Right.
We just got schooled.
Nice.
The rolling around in the park was awesome.
Good job, Adrian Lynn.
Yeah. Kudos, sir.
So then he fakes a heart attack,
which is so weird. Can I just say, like, what funny, like, sexual encounter have you ever had with somebody, and then the next day be like, oh, I'm dead of a heart attack.
He's just goofing around.
But that's a weird goofing around thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was a little strange.
Wrestling is like one thing.
Well, yeah, one night stand, and then the next day you're bringing your dog to the park, and then you're faking a heart attack. Like, I don't know.
It seems like a jump. Yeah. Not that this movie doesn't jump quite a bit, but...
And then she says, well, my father died when I was 7 in front of me from a heart attack.
Which is also fucking weird.
He gets upset, and she goes, I was just kidding. And then he's mad. He's like, you started it. You pretended to fucking die.
Yeah,
see, that was psycho flag number 1 for me, though, actually. Like, because the fake heart attack gag was like, that was really in poor taste or what have you. But then she comes back with my father died. Like, at that point, I'm like, I probably, in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, I probably should stop talking to this chick. Like, she just seemed...
Really?
We'll get back to that.
When you start the heart attack joke, you're mad you get a heart attack joke back?
We will get back to the dad, because there's more there.
I didn't even understand.
No, I'm not mad.
I'm just saying, like, you start the heart attack vein of joking, then you should be open to what happens next.
Well, this is true. I'm just, from an outsider's perspective...
Yeah, it was just odd all around. And he was like, all I kept, like, was, like, one of those memes online. Was just, like, him when he's, like, she's like, I'm kidding. And he's like, and all I could hear is, I don't fuck with you. Like, in the background.
So
ridiculous.
They go back, they fuck some more. He kind of,
did we get a sex scene out of that? At the post part? Point, I think it was assumed, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe it was like a post-coital kind of...
Yes, there was. The caressing stage. It had like a little cuddle moment.
And then like I said, he's completely impenetrable because you kind of like you don't know what he wants at this point or why he's kind of just continuing this. But they had a 2-day love affair because they're listening to the opera together. They're making dinner together.
Well,
and then
after that,
he opens up about his relationship with his father.
Yes,
out of nowhere.
Yeah,
it's just
really left field.
And now you see the look like at this point she was enamored with him anyway, and obviously that she's got issues. But you see the look on her face. That's the moment where she's like, "Fuck, this guy's into me. He wants."
Yeah, the talons were sunk in at that point.
Yeah, this is my future husband.
Yeah. And then she talks about her like his wife and his kid, and kind of like, "Why are you here? If you know." So
everything's great,
right.
And it's a valid question. Your wife is way hotter than me. Why are you here? One of those.
And finally was like, "All right, well that was good. I'm leaving." And she flips script. And
she's like, let's fuck one more time.
Well, right? No. That wasn't right there at that moment, right?
Yeah, they fuck after dinner. They have sex after dinner.
They did fuck after dinner.
And then, like, that's when, after the sex, is when she's, like, topless, and they're just hanging out.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're gonna leave! And she, like, goes crazy, and it's, like, smacking the sheets real weird.
She tells me, you should just tell me to fuck off and just be honest. And
he did.
Fuck off. And then she kicks him.
He did say that.
Okay, now I remember, because that was really, I mean, for any human being in the face of the planet, when you go to leave your extramarital affair, your one-night stand, and, she's drawing you back, and, you're caressing her and making, because, you feel bad at this point. You're like, I'm leaving this girl high and dry, and you realize she just attempted to commit suicide within that moment. You know that it's time to fucking go and not ever talk to this woman again.
Oh my god!
Well,
much like the water, she's rubbing blood.
Yeah. Right. Oh, he's like, your hands are wet, and then he's like,
are we on the sink again? Like,
it was because they're making out, and she's like, let's be friends again before you leave. And then it's almost like, it's again to bring up The Shining again. It's almost like when he starts making out with the naked chick, and then Jesus,
yeah,
it's like that kind of thing.
It's a real shocker.
So this woman that you don't really know just slit her wrist in front of you. Looks pretty deep with all the blood. What do you do? Do you take her to a hospital? Do you call somebody else? Do you call an ambulance? No. I'm just gonna treat it. You're not a fucking doctor, Michael Douglas. You're a shitty lawyer.
I'm gonna rip apart this towel and then just wrap your arms up. See you later.
You're a shitty lawyer. You're a worse husband, and now you actually have a degree in the medical field. So I realize you can bring women back from committing suicide.
Like, I would call an ambulance, bro. Like, even though she cut them the wrong way, there's a lot of blood.
So he finally gets out of there. Goes home and begins the cover-up, which involves him rolling around in his own bed.
Yeah.
He's got to mess up the sheets.
Yeah,
right.
Make it look natural. Because Ann Archer was, she came home, like, right as he came back from that, correct?
Well, yeah, and he hasn't slept in his bed for 2 days.
Yeah.
So he needs
and he's just like, I love you. He's just so beautiful.
Yeah. Well,
he poured it on.
Feeling it now.
Full disclosure, Shannon over there is my wife. I swear to God, if I feel like just
I'd cut it off.
That tapping is our dog. If when you come home and I'm going like that, it's not because I've been fucking the shit out of Glenn Close.
You do.
I'd hope not. I truly would.
Babe. I'm like, alright.
Yeah, no, there was nothing genuine at all about the return of the wife and his greeting of her. No.
You know what? And, like, honestly, he's a piece of shit in this movie. Like, I was very upset with how he just left that bitch bleeding and went back to his life.
Yeah, the movie, all in all, did not paint a very good picture for neither the man nor the woman in this affair. Like, you would like to say that, like, okay, Glenn Close is crazy and Michael Douglas needs to get away from this. No, Michael Douglas is kind of a piece of shit, and they don't really pull any punches with that in this
They're
film.
like, listen, we understand.
Yeah.
And then at this point, we continue this thing with Glenn Close where it's essentially like, I'm cool.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
I'm discreet. that just kept popping up in my head. I'm discreet.
She's calling the house, breathing into the phone. She's calling his office.
Yeah, like she has every phone number he's ever had.
Part of the issue is that it's somebody related to his job. You know
that's true.
So
like she was working with him.
she was on that team for the publishing of that book. So I imagine getting the office number wouldn't have been an issue. The personal number, which he never questions you never really ask about it.
Maybe he did give it to her then.
Well, I mean, imagine
maybe like they're boning. Maybe he was like, "Oh, here's the number."
There's that amazing scene later on when he changes his phone number. And she's talking to the operator, and she's just like, "Well, I need the new number," and he's like, "I can't do that." She's like, "Well, fuck you." And he's like, "What time do you get off?" Or, there's a moment that I just had empathy for a very marginal character. His administrative assistant. This woman, she seems like a nice woman. She's only in like Marsha, I think. It's only in like 3 or 4 scenes. There's a point where she's like, the phone's ringing and she's talking and she's like, yeah, hold on. And she's like, it's her again. And I was just like, this poor woman, she's probably supporting a couple kids, just going to work every day. And this yuppie piece of shit that she works for is fucking this broad and now won't return her phone calls. And I have to deal with her crazy shit every day with all the phone calls.
Seriously, and she must have been dealing with this for a while because he even says, like, is it like it's her again? Like, did you tell her that I said I would call her back after my meeting?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what the actress's name was, but this actress, like, she conveyed all that with a look. She is so good. I gotta find out what else she was in because she was so good. Because I just totally got where she was coming from.
But what is the sense of time in this movie? Like, how long do you think this goes on? I know their affair is the weekend.
Well, so it's just 2 days, and I think by the time that call had happened, I think it's probably within that work week.
Within the work week, okay.
They don't allude that it's been a prolonged period of time, but it's got to have been at least a day or so that she's been calling repeatedly.
Because then, like, she comes and visits him, and she's like, I was in a bad state, like, blah, blah, blah.
that was the... But I'm actually saying cover-up conversation.
Don't worry about it. I bought you some opera tickets.
It's all cool.
She seems pretty reasonable.
Be friendly.
Yeah.
But is that when she... Spoilers, says she's pregnant?
No.
Okay.
That was the scene that was right before the turn. And I call it the turn because that's when it goes from, all right, this is a clingy girl to, like, this girl might have issues, she tried to commit suicide, to this girl is going to murder you and your entire family. It's when she's listening to Madame Butterfly.
Boil the shit out of your
and flicking the light on and off. Like, that is when the viewer is like, okay, this is not ending well for anyone involved.
Nope.
At what point does she go to visit, like, she goes and meets Ann Archer?
Now, that's a couple of interactions past that. I think maybe one or two.
Is that before or after she talks about the pregnancy?
That's after.
It's after.
It's definitely after.
Right, because she does talk about... Okay.
Because Ann's like, because she has a baby on the way. Yeah.
So we get to a point where he finally meets...
Shitty husband.
He meets with her again because she's so persistent about the phone calls.
Yeah.
What happened was, because the Madame Butterfly thing happened, and then...
which he doesn't go to.
He doesn't go to, and then she had been calling... she calls the house. They're having the dinner with Stuart Pankin and his lucky ass and his hotter wife that he should not be with. She calls the house, and Ann Archer answers... hangs up, and then once she calls again, Douglas actually picks up the phone, and like she gives him the whole like, when you're avoiding my calls in the office, like I need to see you like 6 o'clock tomorrow, like be there, like don't let me down.
Don't let me down. Yeah. I feel like I had that in my notes. Yeah, don't let me down.
That was definitely a big moment because that's when we find out like what's going on.
So, then she comes back again when she's pregnant, right?
She
visits him again.
That was the call for the meeting, so she could tell him.
Got it.
Yeah.
She reveals that she's pregnant, and she also says that I love you, and he's like, you don't even know me, and she's like, how could you say that? But
call the doctor.
She'll
tell you all about it.
And she's already like, well, he's gonna think I'm making it up, so I got an angle. Of course. This baby thing, just keep it in mind the rest of the movie because it stops being addressed at some point, and which is really a problem when the shit goes down in the last act. But
when they murder a pregnant woman, that's what we can get to.
Spoilers. Not to pander away from your point, but I'm gonna stand my ground right now. That bitch is not pregnant. I'm sorry. I'm sticking firm that I believe she's a psycho and she just had a phone number, like, yo, here's my doctor, call this number.
If it's
like,
a work
some
week.
guy, like, if she's crazy enough to kill herself in front of him, if she's crazy enough to do everything she did, she's crazy enough to find someone to tell Michael Douglas that she's pregnant.
But here's my thing about it. Depending on how long the movie actually goes, like, if it is a month, then you would know that you're pregnant. Like, okay, maybe she found out she was pregnant. If it's a week, it's definitely not, like, enough time.
His reaction, it falls in line with the rest, like, his character for the rest of the movie, where you're just like, what the fuck, dude? I don't know where you're coming from. He goes, you don't, and she was like, and it was just kind of like putting on her. It's just like, oh, you don't use protection? The height of the fucking AIDS. I'm a married man. I did not
bring condoms.
How could you do this to me? I come in you. Like, I give you my seed, and this is what you do with it.
Yeah, and then he puts that arm around her.
Yeah, and like, no, but
we'll
seriously,
handle it.
and I know for real, like, I have to gotta point this out. We were talking earlier about, like, you know, like the joking of the buddy with the broken neck and, like, you know, making the sex jokes. You really realize how, like, much of these asshole yuppie chauvinistics are, because they were making a lot of, like, racist humor about the samurai book that they were doing. So, like, you see a lot of racist humor that goes on, things that you would not see in film today.
No.
And the way he just slams that in there, so, like, don't worry about it. We're going to take care of this.
Thank
and
God.
she's like,
I'm happy you came to me.
He's like, you know, the abortion.
I'll have to pay for it.
Nonchalant.
Yeah.
Just like she was going to the dentist.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
When can you get rid of that kid?
I got the sense that it was like, even though he wasn't a serial cheater and this is probably the first time he done it, he'd probably been around guys that had fucking gotten away with shit.
Yeah.
Their whole lives.
Yeah.
He was just like, well, this is what we do.
I wonder how many, you know, people that fat friend knocked out.
And it's kind of, you know.
A couple.
How many prostitutes he's left stuck inside.
High and dry. They don't like protection. Condoms don't take it with a feeling.
Come on.
Yeah.
Alex definitely, Alex has her issues, for sure. But, you know, there's definitely, like, this sense of, like, well, you know what? Fuck you.
Yeah.
I will not be ignored.
I think I would go a little crazy if I got pregnant and the guy was just like, don't worry, we'll get rid of it together. Like, wait a minute, hold on.
Yeah, that
you're
was
ignoring
really
the fuck out of me. And, like, listen, maybe she faked it. More than likely.
It's just, it was amazing. There wasn't even like, what are we going to do?
No,
it was
not at
not
all.
a discussion. Yeah. But, like, then also, like, he, I guess, calls the doctor or whatever. Like, nobody ever disproves this pregnancy, so you have to assume that she was
It was really interesting
pregnant.
that they don't, there's never a point where...
It might be fake, but they never make it not fake.
He shows up at his apartment one day, and they're looking to move. So, Ann Archer is showing the apartment to prospective buyers, and of course Alex shows up pretending to be interested, and he kind of no-sells it. He does the, you know, way to play it smooth, you know what I mean? He's trying to play it cool, but he's, you know, he's definitely pissed.
Yeah, he didn't seem like a broken man in that point, but he was jarred. He wasn't prepared for it, and you could see it in his face.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up. So before all this happened, so you know what? I figured this is the way it had to escalate. When you accidentally impregnate your mistress, what's the normal thing to do? Is to break into her apartment? I mean, at this point, she's fine. She is showing. I mean, obviously, she's showing some disturbing behavior. But again, she's also, you know, she won't be ignored. She's pregnant. She wants you to be there. You know,
it's not crazy erratic at this point yet.
Well, so him breaking into her apartment to try to prove that he's not the father is a little much.
I love that that's his reasoning, too. I wanted to see who else she was, like, with. Like, there was going to be used condoms in the trash can. She doesn't use those.
He does dig up is that her father really did die. He finds an old newspaper clipping. Her father did die when she was 7 in front of her from a heart attack.
Yeah.
Which it was weird because, like, they show a picture. It was the 50s and people aged differently because of what they ate, maybe. The picture of the guy, like, oh, that's like a 7-year-old man. It said, died at 42. It was a weird picture. Like,
He lived a hard life. That's what that was. But
you see it in his daughter's boobs.
Like seriously, I mean, he was talking to his fat friend, and he was like, "Jimmy, I'm a lawyer, and now I'm breaking and entering." Like I said, the writers definitely pulled no punches of showing how big of a piece of shit Michael Douglas was consistently throughout this entire film.
And that's what I'm saying. Like they kind of do push it all on her because she does go to the extreme at the end, but she's pregnant and alone and trying to be like, you need to take responsibility.
Quote unquote pregnant.
Listen, they don't disprove it. That bitch is pregnant.
We'll roll with it.
Two things. The other thing that bugged me about the father dying of a heart attack thing, it kind of felt like it was their quick, like in the 80s and 90s, they had this thing where it was like they always had to explain away the villain, sort of.
Yes.
In a pop psychology thing where, okay, well, her father died in front of her when she was young, so obviously she latches on to men.
Issues. Oh, yeah.
But there's... I can't even remember the context, what else she was doing. There's a scene right after that where she's in her apartment, she's laying on the bed, and they just cut to her TV, and they're talking about stun guns on the news. And I wrote, stun gun on TV. I wonder if this will come up later. No. It was. I was
focused in on that.
I was positive at some point there was going to be like she was going to use a stun gun on him. Nope. But anyway, So she goes, looks at the apartment, tries to like fuck with him in front of Ann Archer. So he shows up at her apartment and is like, "I'll kill you." So at this point,
the shit out of her.
You know what's funny? When you explain when I'm saying, like, I mean, in the movie, maybe it's the performances or whatever, but you're kind of like, even though Michael Douglas is a piece of shit, you're kind of like, okay. But when I'm saying it out loud, it sounds an awful lot like Michael Douglas is the problem.
Yeah, I mean,
he goes to the house and just.
Well, like, he didn't really beat the shit out of her, but, like, he goes in, to lay down the law, like, listen, I'm the man, this is the 80s, and, you need to get the fuck out of my life. But as he's walking out the door, she's like, well, I'll just tell your wife, and he grips her up and slams her to the wall.
So hard. She's pregnant.
Like, legitimate, like, boo, listen here, bitch, I cheated on my wife and impregnated you, and I'm gonna slap you around because of it.
By the throat. Like, he has her.
Douglas was kind of
grabbing that knife was her, like, defense. Like, she was like, oh my god, you're gripping me up and throwing me in a wall.
Yeah.
So they move. They roll out. They move to the country, and they get the beautiful country house, and he changes his number. And I think at this point he's got his issues or whatever, but he kind of thinks he's at least he's got some purchase from the situation for a while.
That kid's never gonna matter.
There was something else I wrote down here, and it was just a weird aside. He's on the phone with Ann Archer. He's calling from his office, and he goes, "Did the plumber come?" And she's just like, "Boy, did he ever!" And I was like, "Is there a thing where she was fucking the plumber?" It was weird.
Some revenge.
Fatal Attraction 2.
Right.
When the pipes need to get stuffed.
So, at this point, I think we're starting to roll towards where things get out of hand. And it goes from like a pretty serious look at infidelity between, successful adults and kind of just dealing with in a realistic way to essentially we get a slasher movie for like the last, I mean, we're getting into the stuff with the car or whatever. I mean, I'll tell you, we'll get into it when it really just shit goes off the rails. But he goes out to his car one day to drive to the country, whatever, from his office, and he's walking through the garage, and Glenn Close is seen in what appears to be almost like a catwalk situation, in a cloak, skulking above him like the fucking Phantom of the Opera. They could have just shown the car and been like, oh, well, obviously she did it. But there's this weird thing where they got to be like, kind of show her in the background, like,
yeah. She was very dark, man. Like they were making her the villain at that point,
Very stealthy for 1 month pregnant woman.
She dumped what seems to have been like several buckets worth of acid all over his car. Yeah. Where she got the acid from, we don't know.
Nor the strength while pregnant.
It's a compact car. That's a lot of acid.
To lift those buckets of acid.
Yeah, like I thought that was a really weird choice. Like egg his car, like throw paint on it.
Banana in the tailpipe.
There are things you do. Sugar in the gas tank.
Yes. Yeah.
But acid, like all over his car, like.
Yeah, I mean, just Extremes is a show how off the deep end that Alex has gotten at this point. But I mean, trust me, I don't agree with it either. Yeah, but I mean,
like you could illustrate off the deep end with paint on a car, like just chucking it.
I'm probably missing something because my notes maybe jumped around at this point a little bit. He ends up in another car, right? And he's got this tape that she left him.
Yes.
Hold on. Can I say? You said, "Come on." Like, it was completely natural for this woman that he randomly had an affair with to throw acid on his car. Like, of course it was her. Of course she lugged that acid and threw it all over his vehicle.
That's what I mean.
What?
At this point, everything she's done might be a little desperate and maybe scary, but they're human reactions.
It's a jump.
That's the thing. Things get out of hand fast.
Yeah,
it's like a slow burn, and all of a sudden they just kind of threw out all the way to just go really crazy town. So he ends up getting another car, and she leaves him a tape. The tape is
she mails it to him.
She mails him.
Yeah, he opens.
She mails it to his office though, because he's driving home.
Yeah,
so he's in the car and. The things I wrote down were, I feel you, I taste you, I think you, I touch you.
Yes.
It sounds like a Prince song.
It also sounds like what Basilisk says in Harry Potter. Basilisk.
I don't get that reference.
He says, let me rip you, let me tear you, let me kill you. But it's kind of the same thing.
Well, now, was that what the Basilisk said, or did Ron say that to Hermione? I'm not sure.
Not the Harry Potter podcast, guys. Come on.
That has no clue what we're talking about.
Next week on the Hogwarts podcast.
Right?
And then she gets into like, I don't even know if you like girls, you fucking faggot.
You know, and the term is so crazy because like the beginning of it, it's the typical like, I'm madly in love with you, and I don't know how to handle myself, and like there's a segue to once he gets to his destination, and then it goes from I miss you, I feel you, I touch you. Cut scene, next scene. I think you're a fucking fag. You don't even like girls.
Which
like,
is really weird.
Piece of shit. I'm like, where did that come from? Like,
he goes back and he kind of listens to it again later on. Yeah. And that part's gone. And it's like...
No, they repeat that part.
No, because then if the recording is different. Like, I guess it was like another...
Oh, you're right.
It
it still says, I bet you don't even like women.
But then it's like, you're afraid of them. It's like, it takes like a different kind of...
It was a little darker the second time. Yeah,
It's more like banana in a tailpipe than, acid on a car.
So he goes home, he goes in, he's playing, he bought the rabbit that the daughter's been asking for the whole movie.
No, the famed rabbit.
Why does his son want a rabbit so bad? It doesn't make any sense.
The daughter wanted a
rabbit. The manly child wanted a rabbit.
They have a dog and like a gerbil. I think it was a gerbil.
They made a comment, I think the wife made a comment that the house was turning into Noah's Ark. I think that comment was in there. Yeah.
She has a gerbil?
Yeah, they see it.
When?
You see it almost immediately after the rabbit, like the rabbit's untimely demise, which is really. It's like, well, he's got your gerbil.
Yeah,
but
he only got this rabbit like a day ago. You're being kind of dramatic.
He's in the living room. He's giving the bunny to the daughter,
the child.
She's gonna be really upset about it.
And Glenn Close, still in her Phantom of the Opera garb, is standing outside, looking in their window in like a Ghost of Christmas Present kind of situation, and just starts barfing.
Yeah.
Well, she's really stealthy for a pregnant woman. Nobody ever knows she's there.
Okay, you know what? Now I guess I'll take my fake pregnancy. Yeah, the vomiting. I guess Nice.
But
unless she was physically repulsed by the idea of him having a different
which family. I would argue would very well be true, because she ends up like
arguing your point.
later on deteriorating into self-harm on pretty serious level.
So the rabbit is now purchased. Okay.
So he goes to at this point he decides to go to the police. He goes to the most apathetic detective who just doesn't give a fuck.
But he's like, listen, my friend got into a situation. My friend may have fucked a crazy lady, and now we need to talk about it.
But again, I mean, you're not a doctor, but you're a fucking lawyer. You know how it works.
No crazy.
I mean, I know he's in publishing law or whatever, but he knows how it works.
Granted, divorce court isn't his thing.
But this cop gives him pretty much schools him on how he can't do anything until she really does something.
For a friend.
Yeah, and that's when the whole law thing comes up, because he then turns to he turns to Jimmy Stuart Pankin, and he's like, you know more about family law than I do. Like, he was trying to. Now he's thinking about his assets. You know, Michael Douglas, he's reeling it home, Gordon Gekko style, and getting to the important matters. Like, this woman's gonna ruin my life. Like,
she's gonna rob me blind.
Yeah. When he is talking to him, like his buddy, he's just like, does she have a case? It's like,
yeah,
the fuck?
Fucking have a case. She has your child.
She has you by the balls.
Does she have a case?
So we've arrived. We're at the famous the rabbit scene.
Yes.
Ann Archer comes home and she's like, well, I didn't leave this giant pot boiling on the stove. And, you know, at the same time, Ellen's outside. She's like, where's Bunny?
Running. Yeah,
she's running for the rabbit. Pulls that bad boy up and boiled rabbit.
Probably a bit gamey. I'd imagine.
P.S. As a wife, if there was a giant boiling pot on the stove, I'd be like, Ben, you need to come in and search this giant boiling pot on the stove.
P.S. Glenn Close is fucking dark, man. All right, so she's getting barrels of acid to pour all over a Volvo.
I don't know what's in this thing.
She's standing outside of the window in broad daylight, mind you, watching
vomiting all over your flowers.
Vomiting all over your flowers. And she's also not only sneaking into your house, not only getting your pets, but setting up the stove and a pot long enough time that rabbit was in there cooking. So the next question is, now, did she kill the rabbit first before she stewed it?
It's bloody.
It's bloody, yeah.
It's
so,
bloody.
Yeah.
She probably stabbed it with that giant... It
could have just bursted from boiling, though. I'm sorry. Not to take it there, but that's a possibility.
It looked stabbed because it was white and it had that bright red blood on it, and they always... she always has a fucking knife in her hand. And, but I'm just saying, if I saw that on the stove, fuck that. I'm not touching it. I'm making my husband do it. This is your problem, apparently. You handle it.
I'm glad the dog wasn't harmed. Although that dog...
Quincy?
That dog is pretty useless towards the end of the movie.
Oh, man.
He did nothing, that dog. Except, set up a good disguise for a cheating husband.
Yeah.
It's kind of a piece of shit, that dog.
You know, at this point, Ann Archer's like, well, we gotta call the police. And he's like, well, no... I know who did it.
Yeah. Is this the owning up? This is the owning up scene.
Right.
Yeah.
My friend.
This is again. This is one. I mean, this is one of the big failures of the movie for me. Is that we never get a real serious discussion between the two of them about their marriage, or why he had the affair. We essentially get,
which is essentially for no reason.
You know the blonde that was at the apartment and stuff, and I met her at that party. She goes, oh, yeah, would you have a affair? Haha. And she's like, well, yeah. And she's
turns out.
Well, see, and then I made a note of this, too, because this is another thing pointing back to the chauvinistic... My notes are nothing. I just write 4 words, and it lets me start on something. This is another point of showing the nature of the man and the relationships, the way they work in the 80s, because it's you know what, I'm having an affair, and she's really like, wow, man, an affair, I can't believe that. And he's like, yeah, but she's pregnant. And she's like, what the hell? And she
was taking it really...
loses it.
Here was my thing that stood out, was that he goes, well, it was just one night. It was not one night. It was a 2.5 day fuck fest.
Oh, yeah. Multiple times a day. Oh, yeah. They were getting it in. It was hedonism going on in that apartment.
Yeah, and you know what? She was taking it a lot better than I would have been taking
She was taking it on she took it right on the chin,
like
a heavyweight prize fighter. It was nothing.
When he was like, I know who did this, and she was like, yeah, and he's like, that girl that was there. If I then thought that girl boiled my pet rabbit, I would lose my ever-loving mind.
Yeah, fuck this bitch.
And then you tell me she's pregnant, you wouldn't be alive. I'm sorry, babe. You'd be dead. You'd be the person in the bathtub.
He calls her and he says, I told her it's over, and then Ann Archer has her one, her first badass moment where she effectively just threatens to kill her and just hangs up the phone and walks away.
Need my family.
And Ann Archer, again, awesome.
Beautiful.
Really, I wish they'd given her more to do, and there was just more to it.
Can I say though?
She really
also,
read it.
But minus not to get ahead or spoil it. Minus the very 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 final action that she takes in the film. She was pretty fucking useless when it came to handling anything that had to do with Glenn Close.
Well, you know what? But at least
she
in a movie where there was definitely an argument about like some sexism coming into play.
Oh, indeed.
As far as the Alex Forrest character, at least you have this other strong woman.
Charm's debatable. She doesn't have a job. Her job is buying houses.
She's a homemaker,
and spending her husband's money.
But no, we don't know.
All his money.
We don't know. So there is a moment coming up where she just becomes totally just a wispy just mess.
Total.
No reason.
We're approaching the final climax of the film. So yeah,
we're gonna climax soon.
It's all out there at this point. Just call the police. He
doesn't
call the police, even though they have now that they've got something where at least she broke into their home. She still she killed their pet. They have something on her.
Yes.
Besides not to call the police. All right. So Ann Archer goes to pick up her kid from.
Yeah.
I guess it's kindergarten. These daycare teachers are garbage.
Yeah.
They're just like, they all know what Ann Archer looks like, but they're all like, well, she already left.
Well, it was like a different time when you could just take any child from school.
No. That's bullshit.
No. I think...
When you're dropping your child off or picking your child up from a program every day for, this school year, I'd imagine. It's...
Well, that's the other... Here's the only out I gave him was I was like, well, they just moved, so this is like a new school.
No, because he's still working in the same job. I feel like she's still going to the same school.
Yeah.
Like if he's commuting to work, I feel like they're commuting her to school.
They all knew her, and she knew that little girl.
Yeah.
She says the little girl's whole name.
Instead
of little girl, where's
instead of just calling the police or you're just like going to the house trying to like really just figure shit out. Ann Archer instead decides to get behind the wheel of the car and just drive like a fucking maniac while screaming and crying.
And just look out the window to try to find her. Like,
if you lose your child, there are a lot of ways you can react, but you do not. There's nobody that's just literally driving through miles away from the scene of the crime.
She really she played it like a dog that she accidentally let off a leash and knew what direction it went in. Like she had no clue where this child was. And it's like if I drive around long enough, I'll find it.
We're at one of what I think is one of the maybe the nadir of the movie, besides the very end, and that's Glenn Close has kidnapped this child, taken her to Coney Island, and has got her on the roller coaster. And it's just like, this is bullshit. I
don't understand why she wanted to give her a day of fun. Well, we're gonna go to Coney Island.
It obviously didn't have enough time really to
grow,
but to grow upon that. But I feel that was Alex's case of like, well, now I'm going to get in with the child, and like now if I make the child like me, then maybe the husband will accept me. That's where I would pick up Alex's thought process at that point. What did you pull from that?
I definitely pulled like it was a psychological checkmate with him. Like, I can get your kid what I want.
Yes, I see that too.
There's also this is his child. I'm having his child. And there's points where she's looking over at the kid, kind of like like I'm having a child with the same man this child.
I'm going to be your new mommy type of thing. Yeah.
So you should know who I am.
Yeah.
And she just drops her off. No big deal.
Yeah.
Meantime, Ann Archer had nearly run over a couple that was in very tight pants.
No one was home. She just lets the kid out of the car.
And that's the thing. So Ann Archer never told the cops, and that's what I mean. Like, Glenn Close is like, all right, Alan, nice night. Let's catch you next week. And just bounces. Like the cops weren't there waiting.
Thanks for the roller coaster
ride. Ann Archer didn't call Gordon Gekko to have him come home to wait.
No one was home.
No one knew. And they just dropped the kid off like it was,
like it
no
was
precedent whatsoever.
Nothing.
And then she gets real fucked up in what appears to be a fender bender.
Yeah.
Like
she has some really good eyes.
Yeah. So she gets in an accident while screaming out the window for the child, and she ends up in the hospital. So he runs to the hospital, and if you're wondering if the parents found out about his infidelity at this point, the father-in-law is sitting there looking at him like he's the biggest piece of shit.
Yeah.
So, and he's apologizing and everything. At this point, he's like...
Oh, and they have the kid at the hospital. Yeah. Who told them that the kid was there? Like, because at this point, presumably, the kid is still lost. Like, there's no way for anyone to know where their child was.
Well, okay, so if Ann Archer got in the hospital, the first thing they would have done was contacted contacted Michael Douglas. So what does he do then? He's like, oh, well, I guess I should go, wait a minute. My daughter, like, that was some weird continuity issues right there.
Did he know he didn't know the daughter was missing.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
He just was like,
But now the daughter's there at the hospital with them? Did the in-laws possibly go home to pick up the daughter?
Yeah, because they didn't live with them.
No.
So then it's like, well, did they just be like, oh, we'll check the house like you fucking should have in the first place? And then it was just like, oh, we found her. She was there. She said she went and played Coney Island Day with some bitch.
Michael Douglas is done. He's had enough. He decides to drive back into the city.
Yeah.
And confront her one last time in the apartment. He from the jump just fucking like kicks the door in and is just done. He's gonna beat the living shit out of Glenn Close. And Glenn Close,
every intention.
Who at this point she is terrified, and it's another scene
and
where
pregnant. It's important to mention.
It's another scene where, I mean, out of context, everything else, he's kind of a huge dickhead.
Yeah.
He's beating the shit out of a pregnant woman.
Here's the thing. He immediately goes to the police afterwards. Instead of just going to the police, after all this time where he could have gone to the police, he decides to try to go beat the shit out of her first. And then only when she turns a knife on him is he all of a sudden like, oh, this bitch is crazy.
Yeah.
So he gets the knife away from her, and he sets it down on the counter, which is important to remember for later. I told Shannon about this already, but there's actually an alternate ending. Oh, yeah, I know.
She did make mention of this, and I heard about it, which is, man, that's great, man.
Wait a minute. Was there a second fight scene, or was there a second apartment sequence? Doesn't he get there and she's not there? Or is that... No, he goes in.
No.
He does, because it's like, isn't the knife thing the first fight?
No, that was not the first fight. There wasn't anything. All he did was he was leaving. She made comment about I'm telling the wife. He slams her against the wall and says, "If you tell my wife, I'll kill you." And then he just leaves. There was no knife in that scene.
Okay, so there was a second get together. Okay, I'm sorry. I got a little.
You had said that earlier, and I left it alone, but that was the case.
Yeah, okay.
He tries to beat the shit out of her, and then decides to go back to apathetic cop, who's still pretty apathetic, but he's like, all right, we'll put out an APV for her or whatever. He goes home. Ann Archer's back from the hospital. She's all fucked up, and he'd gotten kicked out of the house for a couple minutes, right, when she was kidnapped, before the kid was kidnapped.
There's no sense of time, so he got kicked out, but
now he's back, right?
Well, she needs someone to take care of
her, and he is up her ass, and there's a look on her face like she's loving every minute. He's like, "Can I get you tea, darling?" And it's all that bullshit. So
it's like, you know what? I would love some tea. I remember all that.
And at this point, I'm looking at I'm watching Netflix. I'm looking at the available on Netflix, guys. I'm watching, and there's only like 9 minutes left. I'm like, boy, whatever happens fast, I guess. Because I very clearly remembered the end of the movie. Ann Archer's in the bathroom.
She's got the robe on, and she's making her way there. Yeah,
she's setting the bath, and this bath's taking forever.
He's making tea. Can we talk about the sauna that she makes out of her house? There is so much steam. It's unbelievable.
He's walking around, and all of a sudden, at this time of night, with the child's in the bed, Ann Archer's making a bath, they've been home for presumably a while, he starts locking all the doors. Because this woman that's already broken into his house is out there in ether someplace, but I'm just going to lock the doors now, right?
No big deal.
We get the mirror reveal where Ann Archer's kind of clearing the steam off the mirror so that you can see Glenn Close standing there in all her glory with her big-ass butcher knife.
She loves that knife.
I love the knife.
Her fave.
And Ann Archer is just kind of backed up, and Glenn Close starts talking about how selfish she is, and the whole time she's digging into her leg with the fucking butcher knife. Which is, I really, like, I thought that was pretty cool. Like, I thought that was a good, just like, this woman's completely done. You know, there's obviously, like, that self-harm thing, but this is, she's had enough. She's done with the self-harm. It's time to harm. She's going after somebody else.
Glenn was truly terrifying in the last sequence of the movie. I give her mad props to that. I want to get into that ending because, like, she had issues with it. Glenn. Ann Archer's screaming her head off, but of course, Michael Douglas can't hear it because... Yeah, what was going on that he...
There was a tea kettle.
Oh yes, of course.
It's the same frequency as Ann Archer's voice. Of course, so. And meantime, the fucking dog who got spared, he watched his buddy brethren die, but he got spared. He's just like, the water's dripping from the ceiling. He's just like,
yeah, look it up.
Licking the water.
Also, how fucking big is the house? Because the tea kettle and the scream don't match up, and here's a scream. It takes him like 5 minutes to get to the fucking bathroom to actually interact with that.
Yeah, and so that tub, the water comes through the ceiling pretty quickly.
Pretty freaking quick, yeah.
It's just immediately...
It was
an old house.
It's not a well-built house.
Right.
This is the countryside, So it's probably just loose with wooden floorboards,
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'll give it to you.
He gets in there, he starts wrestling around with her, puts her hair... and he put the smackdown on her in the first fight. He was... But he throws her head into a mirror. They're wrestling around. He throws her in the tub and he drowns her. And her eyes roll up in her head. They're just like, she looks like one of the
zombies. Her eyes were white.
I was gonna say
all the way.
The psychic things from Minority Report.
Oh, the
precogs. Yeah.
But then they're back to perfectly normal. Like they're back to just in her head, staring up at the water, and she's dead. Yeah. But she's not dead because this fucking movie went from like a psychological thriller about a realistic situation into a fucking Michael Myers movie like that. It was all of a sudden we're just in horror movie territory.
Little to no care.
Hops up and goes, and Ann Archer again. They introduced
a stun. Nice grouping.
They introduced a stun gun early in the movie that never gets used. The idea of a stun gun. Ann Archer had a gun the whole fucking time we did not know about.
No, not true. There's a scene with the drawer.
Yes.
Where before he locks up that night, he's in his study upstairs and the recording is in the thing. And he opens the drawer and you see the gun.
Yes.
But it's never been mentioned. He doesn't say oh, here's my gun to himself. He never shows her where it is. But there is a scene with a drawer gun, and I was oh, that's kind of weird.
All right,
and it was the top drawer of their dresser. It wasn't
if
a
you
hidden
blinked,
spot.
you missed it. Yeah, because they don't focus on it.
At this point, Glenn Close is dead.
Because she shoots her.
Yeah, but she puts her down, right?
Yeah, go straight to the heart, dead right in between the numbers. That was a nice shot.
Let's take a little aside. If my husband's psycho mistress had a knife and he already drowned her in the tub and she came back out and I had a gun pointed at her, I'd be like, listen, if you move, I'm shooting you in the chest. She may have had no regard for her life. She may have moved anyway and would have shot her. But I'm not going to shoot a pregnant woman, crazy as she might be. I'm gonna call the cops.
Okay, you wouldn't shoot a pregnant woman cognitively thinking about it, but no, when Glenn Close hops up out of the bathtub, butcher knife in tow, screaming, you're firing the round. I think that...
Am I firing the round?
That literally
Maybe
was
it's
about...
a wall.
No, that's literally about 0.5 or 0.7 seconds of reaction time. That wasn't a calculated, you have a knife, you're on the other side of the room, put the knife down or I'm gonna call the cops. It was... oh my god, this woman is trying to kill my husband. Alright, now she's dead.
This zombie is back.
Oh my god, she's back. I'm shooting. It was really that quick.
I just had a better idea for an ending, right? So she kills Glenn Close, right? Just turns and just fucking puts a bunch in Michael Douglas, right?
Ooh, that'd be
and
great.
Just my husband and his mistress tried to murder me.
That would have been such a better fucking ending.
It would have been better ending than either one of the endings, because we'll talk about the alternate ending in a second. And then they just have a quick clip of, okay, cops, bye-bye, and then just, closing the door, and then them hugging each other.
Family portrait.
And then they zoom in on the family portrait.
Yeah.
And that's the end of Fatal Attraction. The idea, you never got any real, that was supposed to be the cathartic ending, that Glenn Close got the shit shot out of her. But we don't really ever, that family's not recovering from that. There's no way.
No. Before you move on, I want to go back, that fight Like, when you say Michael Douglas put the smackdown on her, he really came in and beat the ever-living shit out of her.
He gripped her by her neck again.
Yeah. I think she, like, got, like, a slash in across his chest with the butcher knife. But
two of them. She's caught him twice.
Yeah, but other than that, man, he really laid into her. Like, I was like, and then the drowning scene was, I thought that was pretty cool. I think, like, you know, he went to town on her. You know,
she's
that was awesome.
crazy, granted. Like, yes. But, like, I just keep thinking, like, I wouldn't murder her. I would try to get her help. That's my human reaction, I guess. That's what I would do.
You have the ability to stop and think about it and put
they had every
effort
opportunity when she boiled the rabbit and they knew who it was.
Oh.
And, like, you know, they could have, like, taken steps to try to get her help.
Don't get me wrong.
Didn't give a shit.
Don't get me wrong. I agree with that.
She even knew. And
they could have done so many things up to that point.
She knew that his mistress was pregnant. And she didn't. She was just like, okay. Yeah. You handled it.
Good point. So at no point does he give a fuck.
Ever.
She's pregnant with his child.
She brings it up every 30 seconds.
I'm pregnant.
It's always about the... there's never a point where he's like, alright, well, this is my child. It's always about the implications for what that means for him.
Dude, at one point, she's like, I have a child in me. And she's like, that has nothing to do with me. Those were his exact words. My child in you has nothing to do with me.
Nothing to do with me.
He's like, I tried to fix that.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this to me?
They did not give a shit that she was pregnant. They murdered the fuck out of her. Out of her pregnant ass.
This ending is tacked onto the movie that it is up until that point. This end, like the last half hour, but specifically that ending is fucking ridiculous. Yeah. But the original ending that was shot the movie was done. They took it in front of test audiences, and I think this in Japan. It was still the ending. From the point where he beats the shit out of her and he goes to the cops and complains about her. He's like, I watched it today. It's on YouTube. If you type in Fatal Attraction alternate ending.
Oh, you can see the video of this.
I watched it, yeah.
That's awesome.
I guess it was from the DVD, like they released it on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever. He's raking leaves with the wife and the daughter or whatever, and the cops show up, and he's like, oh, they're here because I made that complaint, and she's dead.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, you murdered her. And he goes, I didn't do it. He's like, okay, well then, you know, she had her throat slashed. You just come with us, and we'll just prove that, you know, you didn't do it. We'll just match your prints up with the murder weapon. You'll have your prints on it, right? And, you know, he's like, oh, fuck, I touched the butcher knife when we were wrestling around for it. So he gets thrown in the back of the paddy wagon or whatever. And Ann Archer, again, like, they cannot just make this woman dignified. She's running next to the car. She's just like, I love you. And she's looking in the window and running after it.
He's like, is he on his way to boot camp? Like, running alongside the train? Like, really? Like,
she forgave him. After that accident.
Yeah.
And she never looked back. She was like, we're going to kill the fuck out of your mistress. Don't worry.
we got this.
We got this. We're going to handle it.
So,
as a family.
As he's getting pulled away by the police, he's like, well, call fat lawyer friend.
Siri.
You know, so she runs down into like his study, and is looking for the phone number, and she plays the tape.
And Glenn Close is crazy.
And Glenn Close is talking about how she'll cut herself deeper next time, and she'll really kill herself. So she's like, oh, well, this is the smoking gun. This is the evidence. So she grabs the tape and she runs out of the house, and it's like, oh, I'm going to go get it, clear his name. And then the very end is just the last thing you see is Glenn Close. They cut back to Glenn Close, her sitting on her bathroom floor with the butcher knife, and her just slicing her own throat. That's how the movie ends. The test audiences didn't like the ending. I think they wanted like something a little bit more happy, and something where they felt like Glenn Close was going to get, you know, some kind of comeuppance. So they went and they reshot that entire ending where she breaks into the house and gets killed. And Glenn Close was really against it. She really wanted to stick with the original ending, but everybody kind of pressured it into it, and they reshot it. And during the wrestling scene, when he throws her head into the mirror, he actually gave her a concussion.
Oh.
Really?
Mm-hmm. When she went to the hospital.
So there's no, like, body double? Like, they didn't, like...
Well, if you look at it, I guess it's some kind of fake glass or whatever, but
there's still wood behind it.
He threw her head into a mirror. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he bulged into the bathroom. He pushed her right into it. Like, that was one of the first action sequences of that.
Yeah. So she goes to the hospital because she has this concussion, right? And while she's there, they're like, you're pregnant.
Oh, okay, so...
Glenn Close, it turns out, was pregnant with her daughter while she was actually having this fight. What?
We nailed it home. She was really preggers.
She was really pregnant. They killed the shit out of pregnant women. She was really
preggers.
Which leads us into our trivia section.
He said what? You saw my face.
You can't wave your hands on a podcast.
Yeah.
But that was the victory lap hands.
The crowd, all our listeners knew.
For those listening, Shannon threw her hands up in the air and sort of like a gang-like kind of...
No, it wasn't gang-like.
This is gang-like.
I fucking win.
What? That was gang-like hand signs.
If you imagine someone throwing their hands up and saying, "Wasai," it was essentially that.
Oh, a young white girl.
This is our trivia section, titillating tidbits.
Titillating? Oof. It's getting steamy in here.
Hold on. Just, we're all done. I know I've been really hitting home the pregnancy thing. But also, like, why wouldn't you just, like, all she wants is you. She's terrorizing your family. Why not to just relax her? Hey, you know what? We can be together. Forget my wife. It's not important. Like, let's be together. Get her, take the knife out of her hand, and call a fucking ambulance. Scene.
No one thinks
it's not a thriller.
No one thinks of these things in the heat of the moment. It just doesn't happen that way.
There's
Sorry,
definitely...
I don't mean to hold up.
I think because it was such a big movie, there was a backlash from the mental health community about it.
And
even Glenn Close is like, at the time, she had gone and studied with some psychiatrists about...
Like disorders?
She basically brought the screenplay to like a couple of psychiatrists, and she was like, what is this? And they were both kind of said it was like systematic sexual abuse as a child that kind of made her latch on to men and stuff. Since then, she's like, well, there was obviously like mental health issues, and I kind of wish we hadn't made it seem so cavalierly kind of treated it that way.
Like, it's just some crazy woman who couldn't get over a man.
There was definitely deep-seated bipolar disorder. Like psychosis. She was definitely bipolar. I would definitely say that with ease.
And you know what? Like, in the alternative ending where you're saying, like, she slits her own throat. Like, even that, I'll be like, oh, okay. Like, you know what? She took her own life. But when the father of your child and his wife take your life in a crazy bathroom scene episode... It just makes it's a little much.
I know, and I gotta say, a
little unfair.
And the movie did it, and we have been hammering home the shittiness of Michael Douglas. But let's not forget when this all started. She even clearly stated to him, like, this has nothing to do with you. I want to keep this child.
Yeah,
this doesn't have.
Yeah, she's
like let's not discredit the craziness of Glenn Close. She was spouting some some big words earlier on, like don't worry about this, like this is gonna be weird, I'm not gonna get crazy, and then she got weird and she got crazy. That did happen.
That did happen, but there's hospitals for that. It's not just I'm gonna drown you in my bathtub, which is surprisingly deep. That's a huge bathtub.
That was.
It was like a really a swimming pool.
It was one of those ones that like stick
on
the floor.
Exact
claw. It was clawfoot.
I want one of those.
As long as you just don't get strangled in it, I guess it's going to be a bad idea to get one.
I'm not going to shoot Ben's mistress in it, hopefully. Alright.
I have tidbits and they're titillating.
Sorry, bitch.
So the director, to get the scene where Ellen, the little girl, is crying because Michael Douglas and Ann Archer are fighting, he gave her a stuffed animal, which she has in the scene, and then just off camera was screaming, "I'm going to take your stuffed animal away," to get her to cry.
Wow. That means, A, that female actress, definitely has a lot of separation problems that they're being yelled at, that she's having a doll taken away can bring tears.
He's trying to simulate this movie in real life. He's like, if I torture this young woman actor, make me show a girl.
It's again, it's like the third time I'm bringing up The Shining.
Yeah,
famously, like Kubrick, with the child actor in The Shining, like the child, he didn't know he was making a horror movie. He just thought he was making a movie, and Kubrick directed him just to do stuff, and he didn't realize Kubrick was an asshole with his actors. Like, he could treat them like shit. But, he played it cool with this kid and really had a much bigger role than Ellen does and more involved in a lot of the horrific stuff that goes on than this Ellen actress does. But this Adrian Lynn's just like, fuck, and I'm just going to really make the kid cry.
We're going to ruin this child's life right now, right here.
Right? And the little boy on this set really went through it.
My other tidbit was that bunny boiler, after this movie was released, became a popular expression in the UK for like a crazy woman, like a stalker.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, I'm going to call you that next
She's a proper bunny boiler.
Bunny boiler.
Alright, so it's the moment of truth. Let's go around the circle here. Was it a sexy time? Reese?
I'll start off. I gotta say, the movie itself, it had its sexy moments, and we spoke on it earlier. Even those sexy moments truly, really were not that sexy. But I think, all in all, it was a sexy time. I feel like I had a sexy time. I wasn't necessarily turned on by Skeletor and her crimpy 80s hair, but, I felt the steam. I felt the passion. I felt the lust. I felt that the movie portrayed, infidelity in its finest form and how far, someone could be affected by it and the extremes that they can go to, protect their own emotions and protect their children that they're now going to be bringing into this world. It did a good job nailing all those things home. Everyone had I think, a pretty solid performances here. I mean, this movie had Oscar nods, I believe.
Out the wazoo, yeah. Which is weird looking. I would, like, a movie like this now, I feel like could definitely get a ton of Oscar nominations. It kind of reminded me of Gone Girl, and, like, at the time, it was much more prestigious than it really is now. Like, there used to be, like, only 5 nominations, and I think there's, like, top 10 nominees. Yeah, so your thing is that you could feel the heat. You weren't necessarily like, oh, this is really hot, but you could feel...
it was there. It was palpable. It was palpable. Okay. It was believable. I believe that Glenn Close was truly an afflicted human being. I could truly feel that Michael Douglas was just, a guy trying to get his dick wet and got way too in over his head. Like, hey, I'm calling it like I see it. I'm putting it out there.
That's the worst thing.
But it's true. It was all believable. I had a sexy time. Bottom line.
All right, Shannon.
I had a sexy time for the first 20 minutes. I was like, you know what? This is like.
To be fair, all of the sex is in the first
20 minutes. Yeah. Well, also, when they were having sex, it was like, you know what, this is, hot. And, they really do not at any point make him have sex with his really hot wife.
Yeah.
And
there's a scene where she's, in the mirror, and she's kind of naked, and he starts, rub her legs. Yeah. And that was
He went for the panties in that scene, and then that's when the doorbell rang, was the dinner. But yeah, that was pretty sexy.
Yeah, well, I would have loved to have seen that sex scene. But all in all, no, it wasn't a sexy time. I was very upset that there was a pregnant woman getting murdered, and that nobody really gave a shit that it happened. I can't. Even if you, because you're my husband, even if you got someone else pregnant, I would be worried about your child inside of someone.
I'm gonna say this. I've known both Shannon and Ben for quite some time. I've known Shannon going on 10 years now. You're fucking lying out your ass. If Ben knocked up some bitch, you would have choked her the fuck out.
I would have killed her.
You would have choked her the fuck out.
It would have been my ending where you shot both of them.
I would have killed Ben more than likely. But I would have
So wait, it would have been like the ending of the That Boy Is Mine video where they team up.
I would have, much like Monica and Brandy. No, but I would care that your seed was in someone. I'd be like, you're being really big dick to this woman that you knocked up. Go live with her. Have fun with her.
You're also terrorized.
Fucking out of here.
Imagine you're a proud mama bear, and Glenn Close is terrorizing your child too.
Yeah, no, she stole my kid. That bitch is getting locked up. But I don't know that I could. Not a sexy time. The boiling rabbits and the beating the shit out of women. You are pregnant.
Okay.
And terrorizing my son. I would be very upset, but I'm not mad. I'm not a sexy time.
I mean, I still liked it. I know I kind of shit on it.
Hold on. Ben, was it a sexy time for you?
Okay. So I liked it. I still like it. I don't like it as much as I may have liked it at some other point.
When you were 5, discovering yourself?
No, well, this was actually like one of the ones I didn't see till later.
Oh, good.
But there was never a point where I was like, this is very erotic. I'm, like, honestly,
really
like,
sexual.
this is probably revealing more about me. The sexiest...
It's episode 1, babe. Save it.
The sexiest thing that happens in the movie is whenever Glenn Close has got, like, the crazy eyes.
Yeah.
It's always, like, when there's nobody, like that first scene where, like, he's starting to walk away at the bar, and she's kind of just looking at him, like, sizing him up. And it's just, like, whenever she's kind of, like, lets her guard down, and she's not putting on, like, that I'm a normal person face, and she's kind of just staring at him, I was like, that's sexy. Even though...
She does have her pretty moments. Well, like, she's not a gorgeous woman, but she...
in general, not as an erotic thriller, wasn't that erotic, and the thriller parts kind of annoyed me. But again, I think it's got a really awesome performances in it, and it's still well made, even if I'm not necessarily in agreement with some of the choices they made. So I will go with it wasn't a sexy time, but I still like the movie. And I'm sure on our many journeys to come, we will have plenty of sexy times. Yes. I'm okay with the fact that I didn't have a sexy time with Fatal Attraction. Any more thoughts?
No.
I mean, really, I think we hit all the points. Really, I mean, I look forward to having
a long sexy talk.
Yeah, we had a long sexy talk. I look forward to many more of a sexy time. So.
If anybody has any questions or insights for us, we haven't set up our Facebook yet. We don't have any real social media to speak of, but we do have our email, sexytimetheater@gmail.com, spelled just like you would imagine it would be.
Your opinions.
No, that's theater ER. We're Americans, correct? Not theater RE.
Yeah, I was really on the fence too. I was kind of sorry, but yeah, no, it's theater ER.
Okay.
And send us your opinions. Did you think it was a sexy time?
Did you have a sexy time? Please, we want to know.
So I guess that's it. I feel really good about this. I feel like we got to the bottom of whether or not it was sexy. The discussion did take almost as long as the actual movie itself, which is okay. We had some discussion about whether or not we were going to have a commentary where we kind of watch the movie as we, like, on mute.
That's too long, I think.
But, I mean, we just pretty much spent the length of the movie talking about it.
Yeah, but then there's the magical world of editing.
Yeah. If we would have watched it and commentated, there would have been much.
We had to give backstory.
There would have been much more pandering. We would have watched the whole hour and 45-minute film and then talked for another 45 minutes after the film. So I mean, I don't know, but you're the listeners. Let us know what you enjoyed. You got any thoughts, opinions, comments, questions, criticisms? Please be very open, be very vocal, and always be very sexy.
Thank you, Reese. I like that. Again, just email us with any recommendations for movies. We have some stuff in the pipeline. Some Sharon Stone, the Coreys are in there.
Rebecca De Mornay.
Rebecca De Mornay.
The Coreys are
Rebecca De Pornay.
Yeah.
Hey.
Some Pacino too.
Some Pacino. We got some Baldwins are going to show up, I'd imagine.
Belushi.
All right, my favorite erotic thriller actress, Kim Basinger. I'm looking forward to some of those.
Kim Basinger.
Yeah,
I like it.
Indeed.
Vicky Vale. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that wraps it up for episode 1 of Sexy Time Theater. All right. Go be sexy.
Indeed.
Go be sexy.